My 34 female dad died suddenly and fiancé 33 male doesn't seem to want to hear it anymore. My dad died very suddenly a year ago. He and my mom had moved to a country super far away, and this was hard enough because I was very close to him. My dad was everything to me. I always said that if I ever lost my dad I wasn't sure I'd ever recover. My fiancé and I have been together for a decade. He's incredibly supportive usually and has done his best to try and understand my grief. Initially, I was diagnosed with PTSD to deal with the tragic circumstances around my dad's death and have a lot of trouble dealing with things these days. I'm in therapy. Despite that, I'm working full-time in a high-powered job and haven't dropped one single household responsibility. I do get tired sometimes, but I think the division of labor is pretty equal. My fiancé is in the medical profession and has a 24/7 job, so I know he gets tired. But recently I've been finding that when I cry or ask to talk about my feelings, he says he wants to listen, but everything in his tone and body language scream, "Not this again." He sounds almost nasty and terse and lacking in any compassion when I talk about my dad and how sad I am. He says it's because he's trying to think of how to help me, but it feels very cold. I've said all of this to him, but he insists this isn't the case. I'm feeling hurt and abandoned now more than ever and don't know what to do. He says I should talk more about my feelings, but how can I when I'm really picking up on the vibe he doesn't want to hear it? Too long did not read. Dad died and fiancé seems very tired of hearing about it after being supportive initially. Edit. I just want to thank everyone for taking the time. I'm really touched by the response. There are a lot of great ideas and perspectives here, and I'm definitely going to look into grief support. Your husband can only support you so much before he gets burnt out. It sounds like you need to talk to a therapist, rather than your husband about everything. Be careful of emotionally dumping everything on one person. This is what a therapist is for. I can see you're in therapy. Is the therapy helping? Do you feel it's helped you process your grief at all over the last year? Would going to therapy more often than you are now, or with a different therapist, make a difference? What other people or techniques do you have for processing your grief? Do you talk to your mother, any other family members or friends about this? Do you go to grief support groups, or do you journal? Have you read literature on processing grief? If you are religious, do you go to church and or pray? Your fiancé can only be part of your support network on this. It may be that he should consider therapy for himself, to process the second-hand grief and caregiver burnout. I'm very sorry you're going through this. My best wishes for your future. You are asking an already overextended, exhausted person to give you support when they just don't have the energy or know what more they can do for you. Have you considered a grief group? I think there is even a forum here for people who are grieving. Your partner has, as you said, a 24/7 medical job, so they themselves are probably barely holding it together. It doesn't sound like either of you are in a place to be each other's primary or sole emotional support. A whole group of people going through similar pain to you would give you an outlet for some of your feelings so they wouldn't take over your marriage. I'm very sorry for your loss. I couldn't handle consistently having someone's grief unloaded on me for a full year. I would try to find a support group to talk to at this point instead. Do you have anyone you can talk to about this besides your therapist and fiancé? Friends or support groups? He might need a break. It sounds like his job would also have an emotional burden, so he may be experiencing some empathy, emotional burnout. Have you explained that you don't expect him to solve anything? Assuming you don't, I mean. Like if you just want to share a memory or something and need a hug, does he understand that's what you need? If he's in the medical profession, he's likely used to having to solve a problem and is burnt out. I'm so glad you're in therapy. Have you brought this up there? My condolences on your loss. Have you tried any psychiatric medications to help break your deep depression? It's been a year of intense grief. You were very bonded with your father. You will always miss him, but it seems like you could use some coping skills so that you don't swamp yourself and your soul. I am so sorry for your loss. By no means am I suggesting you just get over it. I wonder if you could use some time off of work to devote to an IOP, intensive outpatient psychiatric program. Have you looked into support groups? It sounds like it's time to widen your net of support.